the familiar figure of a man in a white coat. Dr. Fisher stood at his desk, his hands frozen over the keyboard. Seeing us, he didn't look surprised, more resigned. "I knew you'd be back, Captain Harper," he said, taking off his glasses. "I was hopping for it." "Dr. Fisher," I kept him at gunpoint, "what the hell is going on here?" "No time for long explanations." He glanced at the timer on the screen. "In 20 minutes, Solovyeva will launch Damocles' sword. If that happens, the consequences will be catastrophic." Lauren helped Emma sit down in a chair, while the operatives gave first aid to Kane. The wound on his chest looked serious, but not fatal. The bullet passed just above the heart. "Tell us everything," I demanded, not lowering my weapon. "What is Damocles' sword? Why did you erase my memories?" "I didn't erase them," Fisher shook his head. "I hid them, to protect you. Damocles' sword is more than just a weapon system, Captain. It's a technology for global mind control. It can influence the neural processes of populations of entire regions via satellite. Imagine the ability to control the emotions, decisions, even the thoughts of millions of people at once." I stared at him in shock. "That's impossible." "It used to be impossible," Fisher gave a bitter smile, "until Solovyeva gathered the best minds in neuroscience and forced them to work for her, as she forced me." "Forced?" "My daughter," his voice trembled. "They're holding her somewhere, said they'd kill her if I didn't cooperate." I slowly lowered my weapon. Suddenly, the picture began to come together. "You were working on implanting the codes into our minds." "Yes," Fisher confirmed. "Project Black Phantom was originally defensive, to split the access codes to strategic weapons between several agents, so that no one person could activate the system alone. But Solovyeva twisted the idea, turning Damocles' sword into a tool for mind control. And they kidnapped me to extract my code fragment," I continued. "But something went wrong." "I sabotaged the procedure," Fisher confessed. "Instead of extracting your memories, I deeply encoded them. They thought they had obtained the code, but in reality, I slipped them false data. The real fragment is still in your memory, Captain." "And then they decided to use Lauren." I glanced at her. She was listening silently, clutching her wounded shoulder. "Yes," Fisher nodded. "Solovyeva's plan was brilliantly cruel, to replace your wife with a double who would help you recover your memory naturally, and then extract the real code. But I think even Solovyeva didn't foresee one thing, the human factor, that Lauren would fall in love with you." He looked at Lauren with unexpected sympathy. "What did they do to my real wife?" I asked, nodding towards Emma, who was watching us quietly. "Used her as a test subject," Fisher replied softly. "Studied her memory, trying to find clues to your code, and of course as leverage against you if you ever ended up here." Fisher suddenly approached the wall, pressed a hidden panel, and a section of the wall slid aside, revealing a small safe. He quickly entered the code and took out a plastic access card. "This is a top-level key," he handed me the card. "It will give you access to the central hall, where Solovyeva will launch the system. Only there can it be stopped." "Why are you helping us?" I asked, accepting the card. "Because I created this monster." His eyes darkened with pain. "And now I must help destroy it, even if it costs me my life, and perhaps the life of my daughter." In the distance, the sound of a siren could be heard. "They've blocked all the exits," Lauren said tensely. "We need to move." "To the main platform," Fisher directed. "Through this corridor, then 2 levels up. Hurry." We gathered to go. Kane had finally regained consciousness, his gaze clearing. "James," he croaked, "Alex, don't trust him." "I know," I clapped him on the shoulder. "Hang in there, old man, we'll get out of here." As we were at the door, Fisher called out to me. "Captain, the watch, your watch, it's important, remember that." I nodded, automatically touching the pocket where the watch, given to me by Emma, with the microchip inside, lay. It was clearly something more than just a memorable gift. 3. The corridors blurred into one endless labyrinth of white walls and glass doors. We moved quickly, following Lauren's directions. Two operatives supported Kane, who, despite his injury, insisted on walking himself. I helped Emma, whose strength was gradually returning. "I was so afraid I'd never see you again," she whispered, holding my hand tightly. "They said terrible things, showed me pictures of you with her." She nodded towards Lauren. "That wasn't me," I squeezed her hand. "That is, physically me, but without any memory of you. They were trying to manipulate both of us." She looked at me seriously. "You still don't remember me, do you?" I didn't want to lie. "Only fragments, flashes, but I know it's you. My heart remembers even if my memory fails." We reached the end of the corridor, leading to the main wing of the complex. Through the glass door, we could see a guard post. "A tricky area," Lauren said quietly. "At least 4 guards behind the door. Fisher's keycard will unlock the entrance, but after that, we'll have to fight our way through." We quickly devised a plan. Lauren would use her employee status to distract the guards, and we would burst in after her. She straightened her lab coat, wiped the blood from her face, and feigning panic, rushed towards the guard post. "Alarm in Sector B," she shouted, banging on the glass. "Intruders have broken into the laboratory. Everyone there urgently." The guards hesitated but opened the door. At that moment, we burst inside. A short firefight ensued. One of our operatives took a bullet to the abdomen and stayed behind to cover our retreat. We continued moving. Now there were 5 of us. Me, Emma, Lauren, the wounded Kane, and 1 operative. Ahead, we could see the entrance to the central hall of the complex. "Solovyeva will be there," Lauren warned, breathing heavily and clutching her wounded shoulder. "She won't be alone. Alex has probably already warned her." "Why are you helping us?" Emma suddenly asked, looking at her copy. "After everything you've done." Lauren met her gaze. "Because I'm tired of being a shadow. Someone else's shadow." She shifted her gaze to me. "And because some things are more important than orders and programming." Suddenly, Alex burst out of a side corridor, holding a gun. His face was bloody from the blow he'd taken earlier, his eyes burning with rage. "You're not going anywhere," he roared, aiming his weapon at Emma. Lauren darted forward without a second's hesitation. A shot rang out in the confined space, and she fell, taking the bullet meant for Emma. "No," I fired back, hitting Alex in the shoulder. He staggered back but managed to disappear around the corner. I rushed to Lauren. The wound was mortal. The bullet had struck her in the chest near her heart. "James," she whispered, grabbing my hand. "Take." She pulled a flash drive from her lab coat pocket. "Here's everything about Cerebrum, their agents' operations." Each word came with difficulty. "Solovyeva mustn't win." Emma unexpectedly knelt down next to her. "Hold on," she said to her copy. "We'll get you out of here." Lauren smiled weakly. No need to waste effort. I knew what I was getting into. She turned to me. "Forgive me for everything." "There's nothing to forgive." I squeezed her hand. "There is." Her voice was getting quieter. "I loved you for real. I wanted to be you." She looked at Emma. "But in the end, I realized it's better to die as myself." Her eyes glazed over. Lauren Gray, the woman who became a copy of my wife and an unexpected ally, was dead. 4. The central hall of the complex resembled a futuristic command center from a science fiction movie. Huge screens on the walls, rows of computers, and in the center, a massive console connected to something resembling a gigantic transmitter. And in front of the console stood her, Director Elena Solovyeva, a tall, gray-haired woman with sharp features and cold, calculating eyes. Next to her was Alex, clutching his wounded shoulder. "Captain Harper," Solovyeva smiled as if greeting a long-awaited guest. "What an honor, and Mrs. Harper is here too. A family reunion, how touching." We kept them at gunpoint, me, Kane, and the operative. Emma stood behind us. "It's over, Solovyeva," I said. "The system won't be activated." "Oh, are you so sure?" She raised an eyebrow mockingly. "Do you think you got this far of your own accord? That you broke out of the clinic, found the hiding place, contacted Kane, broke in here, all on your own initiative?" Something cold stirred inside me. "What are you talking about?" "Bravo, Captain Harper," she applauded. "You followed the path perfectly, just as I planned, from your first awakening in the clinic to this very moment." "Nonsense," Kane spat out. "We found James ourselves. Your operation failed." "Really?" She smiled even wider. "And you haven't wondered why the security at the clinic so easily allowed him to leave? Why a hiding place with information was left in his house? Why Lauren so conveniently betrayed us at the critical moment?" I felt a chill run down my spine. "You mean?" "That it was all part of the plan," she nodded. "We extracted the code from your memory long ago, Captain. But besides the 5 fragments, we also needed to identify the entire network of government support for the project." She pointed at Kane. "Thanks to you, we've identified everyone who knew about the existence of the codes, including your little secret group, Major Kane. They're all detained now, and the last fragment of the code is in our hands." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you saying that even Lauren's betrayal and her death were part of your plan?" "Not quite," she frowned slightly. "Her emotional attachment to you became an unexpected complication, but ultimately, even that played into our hands, made her betrayal more believable. Sentimentality has always been her weakness." "You're talking like you've already won." I gripped my pistol tighter. "But we're here and the system isn't activated." "Not yet," she looked at her watch. "But in 5 minutes the satellites will reach the correct position, and Damocles' sword will come into effect, and you will witness a new era of control over humanity." Solovyeva nodded at Alex, and he pressed a button on his wrist device. Something changed in his eyes. His pupils suddenly dilated, his gaze became empty. "Here, another demonstration of the capabilities of our technology," Solovyeva smiled. "Agent Mercer, kill them all." Alex moved with inhuman speed, a speed no trained special forces soldier could match. It was as if not blood, but pure adrenaline flowed through his veins. He lunged at our operative, breaking his neck with one precise movement, then turned to Kane. A brutal struggle ensued. Kane, despite his injury, fought desperately, but Alex seemed not to feel pain. His movements were mechanical, devoid of human hesitation or doubt. "Alex," I shouted, trying to break through his clouded consciousness. "It's me, James, your friend." No reaction, only a new series of attacks, even more ferocious. At the critical moment when Alex pinned me against the wall, raising a knife for the fatal blow, I noticed a familiar object on Solovyeva's neck, my watch, the one Emma had given me. She was wearing it like a trophy. And then the last, most powerful flash of memory overwhelmed me. I remembered everything, every moment with Emma, every briefing on the Black Phantom project, every detail of my kidnapping. And I remembered what the code in my head meant. It wasn't an activation key for Damocles' sword. It was the cancellation code, built in by the creators as a failsafe. At the last moment, I dodged Alex's knife and, gathering all my strength, struck him in the throat with a shard of glass from a shattered monitor. He gurgled, falling to his knees, his eyes again filled with human consciousness and understanding of what was happening. The last look he gave me was full of horror at the realization of what he'd done. Then he collapsed to the floor and didn't move. I rushed towards Solovyeva, snatching the watch from her neck. "No," she reached for the alarm button, but I intercepted her hand. I opened the back cover of the watch with trembling fingers, extracted the microchip, and inserted it into the main computer slot. The screens flickered, and the system emitted a series of warning beeps. "What are you doing?" Solovyeva screamed. "You don't understand. This is the evolution of humanity, the end of chaos. the beginning of true order. "This is slavery," I replied, activating the cancellation protocol, "and it will end before it begins." The system began to shut down. The screens one by one went dark, the transmitter lowered, retracting into the floor. Solovyeva watched in horror as the fruits of her life's work disappeared before her eyes. "Emma," I called without turning around, "I need your help. Download all the data from this computer onto the flash drive." Emma quickly approached, inserted the drive that Lauren had given us, and began the download. "You have no idea what you've done," Solovyeva glared at us with hatred. "Decades of work." "Decades of evil," I corrected her, "and now the whole world will know about it." 5. The emergency siren wailed, announcing the start of the self-destruct protocol. Red lights flashed throughout the complex. "We don't have much time," I helped Kane to his feet. His wound looked serious but not fatal. "We need to get out of here." "Wait," Solovyeva tried to push us away from the console. "You can't just leave, not after everything I've done." "We can and we will." Emma yanked the flash drive from the computer. "Download complete. All your secrets are now ours." Solovyeva lunged for the door, trying to block the exit, but Emma, to my surprise, made an accurate throw, knocking the woman to the ground. "That's for 7 months of my life," she said with cold fury, "and for everyone you destroyed for the sake of your insane idea." "Self-destruct in 5 minutes," a mechanical voice echoed through the complex. "All personnel must evacuate immediately." We didn't waste time on Solovyeva. I supported Kane, who, gathering his last strength, was walking himself. Emma led us towards the emergency exit that Lauren had told us about. The complex was already beginning to collapse. Sections of the ceiling were falling, doors were jamming. Somewhere in the distance, explosions could be heard, the first charges, the laying of which was part of the self-destruct protocol. "Almost there," Emma pointed to a door at the end of the corridor. "It should be a technical exit." Suddenly, a group of armed guards appeared from around the corner, frantically running towards the same exit. Seeing us, they hesitated, but the choice between fighting and saving their own lives was obvious. They ran past, without even trying to stop us. The door didn't yield right away. The electronic lock was flashing red, refusing to work in emergency mode. Kane, despite his injury, helped me to break the panel and restart the system. "Got it," the lock clicked and the door opened. Beyond it was a long tunnel, leading to the surface. We hurried forward, hearing the increasing roar of destruction behind us. "Damocles' sword," Kane muttered. "We stopped it after all." "I don't understand," said Emma, helping him along. "How did you remember the code? You said you barely remembered anything." "The watch," I showed it to her. "It was the trigger. Fisher knew that. He deliberately left me a hint." We reached the exit to the surface just as a major series of explosions shook the entire structure. Running out into the open, we saw the Horizon Clinic building begin to collapse inward, like a house of cards. "Solovyeva is in there?" asked Kane, breathing heavily. "If she didn't manage to get out, then yes," I replied. We moved to a safe distance and turned around, watching the destruction of Cerebrum's citadel. The spectacle was both terrifying and majestic. "It's over," whispered Emma, taking my hand. "Finally." 6. 3 months later, life began to take on some semblance of normality. A government commission officially rehabilitated me, recognizing me as a victim of criminal conspiracy and kidnapping. The investigation into Cerebrum's activities continued, but most of the organization's leaders had already been arrested or liquidated while attempting to escape. Dr. Fisher made a deal with the investigation, providing all his knowledge and data. His daughter was found alive and well in one of Cerebrum's secret facilities. They were now under a witness protection program, starting a new life somewhere on the West Coast. Kane was recovering slowly but surely. He was promoted to colonel and appointed head of a special task force to counter neurotechnological threats. Someone has to make sure this never happens again, he told me during our last meeting. With Emma, it was more complicated. I still hadn't recovered most of my memories of our life together. Some moments were coming back: the first meeting in Berlin, the proposal on the bridge, the trip to Rome, but much remained in a fog. We met in a small cafe where, as she told me, our first date had taken place. I didn't remember the place, but I felt a strange coziness being here. "How are you?" she asked, as we settled at a table by the window. "Day by day," I smiled. "The doctor says that a full recovery of memory is possible, but there are no guarantees. Some fragments may be lost forever." "Does that scare you?" I thought about it. It used to scare me. Now, I don't know, I worry about something else. "About what?" "What if the feelings we had before never come back?" I looked at her, trying to catch in myself echoes of former love. "What if we can no longer be the people we were?" She took my hand, and that touch felt right, natural. "Our memories make us who we are," she said quietly. "But even when memory fails, the heart remembers. They were able to steal our past, but they couldn't steal our future. And I choose a future with you, no matter if you remember our first meeting or not." Her words touched something deep inside me. I realized that I wanted to start anew, create new memories that would replace the stolen ones. After the cafe, we went to the bridge, the very one where I had once proposed to her. The sun was setting, painting the water in golden and pink hues. I stopped in the middle of the bridge and took a small box out of my pocket. In it was a ring, not the original, which had disappeared along with my memories, but a new one, chosen with no less care. "Emma," I opened the box, "I don't remember how I proposed to you the first time, but I want to create a new memory here and now. Will you marry me? Again?" She looked at me with eyes full of tears, and in them I saw all that, perhaps, had once made me fall in love with her. "Yes," she replied simply. "Yes, James." As I put the ring on her finger, something stirred in the depths of my memory. Not a flash, not a specific image, but a feeling of déjà vu, as if I had already done this before in this very place with the same woman. And at that moment I realized that even if all my memories never fully returned, we could create new ones no less precious. We embraced, standing on the bridge, and the golden light of the sunset was reflected in the water beneath us. And in that moment, brief and perfect, I felt the first true glimmer of full recognition pierce the fog of my memory, connecting the past with the present, promising a future that cerebrum could not steal. If you liked this story, then support the author with a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your emotions in the comments. Thank you.